Today we're going to be talking about building a secure digital foundation, the essential IT and cybersecurity practices that all businesses need to be paying attention to make sure they don't fall victim to a devastating cybercrime event. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm married, been married for 24 years, almost. I have 3 teenagers. How many people have teenagers? So you understand, we are in the trenches of parenting right now. Not an easy time to have teenagers. I was always big into academia. I love to learn and teach. I went to the College of St. Rose in New York. Yes, the same college that Jimmy Kimmel went to. It seems relevant, I don't know. And I became a speech and language pathologist. I spent many years working with people who had communication disorders and weren't able to communicate in normal means. And I quickly learned what technology can do to change your life. I was able to give people a voice with using technology. I then loved teaching and learning, so I got my master's in teaching and became a teacher, and I taught for many years. I worked for the district. I helped set testing standards and protocols and mentored other teachers and things like that. I've worked in a variety of hospitals and schools and things like that, and now I work with just a variety of businesses. Let's talk about a little bit about who Cybertools is. Cybertools is a managed service provider. That's the term that's popular right now. We do business IT and cybersecurity, both for small and medium-sized businesses, and we also do what's called co-managed IT, where if you have an internal department that can't keep up with what's going on, you can layer us on top of that to help bridge the gap with some of those holes. We've been in business since 1999. My husband actually told me he wanted to start this business 2 weeks before we were getting married. He was quitting his job and starting a business. And I was like, are you kidding me? We are broke. We just spent every bit of money we have. But you know, I believed in what his mission was. He was working for a company at that time that was serving small businesses. And, you know, back then it was helping businesses propel their business using technology. It was not cybercrime as much as it is now, right? It was more about how can we use technology to empower the business. And he felt like businesses were really getting the yucky end of the deal. They just weren't getting good service. It was like, you know, come out and fix this printer and then come out and fix it 5 more times and give you a bill. And he really felt like there was a better way to do it. So you can imagine what I felt like at that time, but I went ahead and said, okay, let's do it. I had just quit my teaching job because I'd had my second child, and being the planner that I was, I had a whole year of salary saved up, and I was going to stay at home and eat bonbons and watch soap operas and play with toddlers and babies. And then the worst year of our lives kind of hit, and I'm sure for you guys remember this time too. We were heavy, our customers were heavy in the mortgage and real estate and construction and the surrounding service industry. And David came home and said, I don't know what we're going to do. You know, that we're in trouble. Like, and a lot of the businesses that we work for are in trouble as well. And so what did I do? I said, okay, I guess I don't get to eat bonbons anymore. I will come to work for you and I will do whatever you need to do. So I became the indentured servant. I did whatever Cybertools needed, right? I cleaned the bathrooms, I vacuumed, I did the accounting, and I started to learn because I've always been a learner. And what I realized was that I could be a teacher in this environment because business owners really didn't understand what they needed to help their business power forward. And after I started to understand and see it, I knew I could teach people to do it. And like I said, technology has really changed over the last few years. We are now chasing a bad guy, and it's a bad guy that's invisible and has less than 0.1% chance of getting caught. They can spend $80 to buy the tools that they need to do the crime that they do. And with the invention of AI, not the invention, it's been invented for a long time, but the evolution of AI, we're seeing now that they don't even have to be smart. They just have to be malicious because AI writes the code for them. and delivers it. So we are in an era that is uncharted territory, and we have to figure out how we move through this and how we get businesses through it and how we make sure these people do not affect it. A little bit about our business. In order to keep up with this, we partner with a lot of other smart people. We cannot keep up with this on our own. We are part of a group that does business development that has 3,000 other managed service providers involved in it, and we learn from the best about things that we need to do. Yes, that is actually me with the Shark Tank. So Robert Herjavec actually owns a $1 billion managed service company, and he comes and partners with us and talks to us about things that we need to know about in the space, telling us what's coming, telling us what he's seeing in the big corporate environments. And in this group, we've been kind of successful. We won Accountability Group of the Year last year. It looks like the Stanley Cup. Hunter was like, "Oh, you won the Stanley Cup?" And I'm like, "No, not really, but we did. We were recognized as people that were really working hard to try to stay on top of this. We were featured on the cover of MSP Success magazine, and we also have hired the same company, only possible because of this group that we're a part of, that trained the customers of the trained the employees of the Ritz-Carlton, Chick-fil-A, and Starbucks, and how to give good customer service. Because one thing we do recognize in technology is that we're working with technicians who are not people, right? And that is a big challenge that we have, is waiting on hold. And, so we're trying to teach our technicians how to become people so that we can still offer that good service. So enough about me. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. Today, I want to share with you the invisible threat that will completely destroy your business unless you have an IT strategy that can detect the danger and protect your reputation and your revenue. We're going to start with a little story about Bob. Bob was the owner of a farming equipment company in the Midwest that had about 100 employees. His IT provider kept getting alerts that somebody inside the company was trying to breach the firewall by clicking on a malicious website. They got the alert, the firewall stopped it, and then 15 minutes later, they got another alert, another computer from the company trying to go to the same website. And then a few minutes later, another alert. Again, the firewall has blocked this every single time. So they call up Bob and they say, "Bob, what's going on? We've got somebody trying to breach this firewall. They're clicking on a malicious website. What is happening?" And Bob says, "Oh, I'm so embarrassed. It's me. I'm trying to order a part for one of my clients, and it didn't work on the first computer, so I went to the second one, and it didn't work there, so I went to the third one." So the owner himself was about to let somebody come into his own network. And this is why compliance is so important, because we had all the procedures, we had the security, we had the compliance rules in the firewall of what was allowed and what wasn't, but what we didn't have was the compliance of the people, right? And that is the hardest thing that that is the thing we have the hardest time controlling in this environment. If it wasn't for the firewall, the owner of this company would have helped hackers get inside of his computer system, and it's that easy. And with the invention of AI, it doesn't even look suspicious anymore. AI is writing their content. AI has fixed their spelling mistakes. AI has fixed their graphics that look janky, and you can't tell anymore what is real and what isn't. And it is a scary world. And it's not just Bob that makes these mistakes, right? In fact, many employees click links or applications that they shouldn't, either because they can't tell it's malicious, or, I really need this free calendar sync tool because it's going to make my job better, right? Exceptional business leaders know that compliance in cybersecurity isn't optional, it's essential. More than half of small and medium-sized businesses don't have cybersecurity measures or an IT strategy in place at all. They simply don't think they can afford it, and many of them can't. It's the bitter truth, but you can't afford not to have it in today's landscape. Small and medium-sized businesses are actually more likely, 3 times more likely, to be targeted by cyber criminals than the larger companies. And why is that? Because they don't have the budget, or they're not using it to put towards their cybersecurity. Average business leaders think compliance is optional, not essential. compliance isn't optional, it's essential. Cybersecurity compliance failures will destroy your business unless you have an IT strategy to detect the danger and protect your reputation and your revenue. And today I'm going to be giving you some components of that strategy, some things that we are helping businesses do, and some things that I think are essential to having as part of your strategy. And the first one is anyone reviewing your firewall's event logs for suspicious activity? Everybody, I talk to so many business owners and they say, oh, I have a firewall. It's no big deal. I'm good. Well, who's watching it? When's the last time it was updated? Are you doing the security patches on it? Is it even supported by the vendor anymore? Because these days, and Hunter can attest to this, if we know that there's a vulnerability in a piece of software or a piece of hardware that a cyber criminal has been able to breach, we get rid of that product immediately. So your firewall maybe was purchased a year ago, but if we decide we need a bigger, better one to get ahead of these cyber criminals, we have to do that. So that is a very important part of it. As I said, compliance failures can completely destroy a business. Let's look at the recent hack at the MGM Grand, right? This was a social engineered attack. It's done by a group of miners called the Scattered Spider. It's a hacking group. So miners shut down Vegas. That's the sad part, right? They looked on LinkedIn. They found a profile of an employee that worked for the MGM. They called the help desk and they said, I am that employee and I can't get into my email. And what did they do? They changed the password for the person. The person got into the email, breached the system, and it's estimated that this cost the MGM $100 million and their stock dropped 6%. This is the true reality. I was in Phil and I were in a tech conference in Nashville about 4 weeks ago, and we were staying at the Omni Hotel. That's where the conference was. And when we got there, there had been a cyber attack on all the Omni hotels across the entire United States. We had no keys for 2 or 3 days, and none of us took our laptops out, because we were like, we're not trusting this place. So none of us hooked our laptops to the Wi-Fi. We were the old pen and paper. So this is happening. It's happening every day. They're getting good at their craft. How many of you have ever got a parking ticket because you couldn't decode the parking rules? Confusion makes compliance difficult, sometimes impossible, especially if you can't understand it. Compliance with cybersecurity best practice and government regulations feels a little less essential and more voluntary because technology is relatively new, or some of it is, and it's constantly evolving, and it can be difficult to understand. I meet with hundreds of business owners, and so many of them, they're good at what they do. They're good at building homes. They're good at plumbing. They're good at baking. They're good, right? But they don't know anything about this. And who do they trust, right? Because anybody can come in and tell them anything, and they have no idea if it's true. But this is something we have to pay attention to because there are risks of noncompliance. And the risks are lawsuits, paperwork, notifications, fines, loss of customers, reputational damage, reduced revenue, increased costs, and let's not forget stress and exhaustion of what happens to your business when you cannot run. Risk. There are some responses that we can have to risk. We can ignore it, which I think is dangerous and foolish in today's cyber landscape. We can avoid it, which is a little unproductive and unrealistic. We can accept it, which is difficult but necessary. We can reduce it, which is complex but feasible. And we can transfer it, which is possible with compliance. Ooh. So excuse my analogy here, but since we're in the Master Builders Association building, I figured I would give you a compliance analogy to building a home, because the same things that you need to put in place to build a good home is what you need to put in place to build a solid IT strategy. It's pretty much the same across any industry, but I thought appropriate since we were here to bring it back to homes. When you build a home, you have to think of safety and reliability. think about all the things when you're building a home that you have to think of for safety. It's site safety, it's personal protective equipment, hard hats, safety glasses, fall protection, tool safety. In terms of reliability, you have to ask yourself, are the people I have hired, are they skilled laborers? Are they going to be able to do this? Are they reliable? Are they going to show up? Is the project coordinated to meet deadlines and schedules? In the future, you're going to be trying to do the safety and reliability of things like this with the invention of robotics and AI. And I'm not smart enough to make this thing play, but this is a robot that is actually painting a floor, and they have robots that are now painting houses, and they also have, oh, I did it, look at that. Smarter than I thought. And then they also have robots that are building walls quicker and faster than any human can, and being able to manage the reliability and the safety. These are the things that are coming in our world that we have to figure out how we're going to deal with. In terms of security, you have to manage it when you are building a home. You have to think about putting the tools away and locking up the technology and making sure that you've got lights showing, and they now put those police things up in the parking lots when they leave their equipment, right? You have to keep things secure. Inside the home, you plan for security like home surveillance and door locks and outdoor lighting, things like that. You also have insurance when you're building a home, right? And you have compliance. Let's talk a little bit about safety and reliability in terms of your solid IT strategy. We had a nonprofit that we worked for that was really hesitant to put a backup in place. They just simply did not have the money to do it. But they saw a friend's business become compromised, and that friend did not have a backup, and they realized how important it was. And so they put one in place. And a few weeks later, they lost power due to some sort of situation down in Tacoma that was happening. And we were able to restore their data quickly. You wouldn't believe how thankful she was that she made that decision. And usually it doesn't happen until something bad happens. That's when people mostly start to make this decision. We had a plumber that we worked for up in Puyallup, and they invited us in to come and do an evaluation of their network. They knew they needed cybersecurity. The brother that was doing the IT for them, they had outgrown, and he was never available because he had a full-time job. They invited us in. We came in. We talked to him about, oh man, you're backing up your entire file system on this thumb drive. Do you realize that hardware is made just like your new washer and dryer or that stupid newfangled dishwasher? They don't make it to last, and it doesn't always last, and it can fail at any time. And they actually had us try to see if we could recover the files from the said thumb drive, which had corruption on it and was not able to be recovered. And that's when they said, well, shoot, we better get a backup put in place. 3 weeks later, their building burnt down and burnt all of the computers. And we were able to come in, and as quick as we could buy devices, we were able to get that image pushed back out, and their technology was, or their business was back up and running because we had backed up their data. And we had backed it up with an image-based backup that could be pushed out within seconds, not having to wait for that cloud to download all these files and get them back up and running. So this is our second IT strategy checklist item. Do you have secure backups for your data and systems? And could your data survive a fire or a ransomware attack? There are different types of backups for ransomware. The backup we use is air gap technology. It's an immutable backup. It sits next to your server. We have a device. If there was a ransomware attack on your server, we would be able to flip a switch and operate on a device as if it was your server and have you back up and running within an hour. You think you have a backup, but do you know what it does? Do you know if it's securing your data? Do you know if it's doing what you need it to do? I'm going to keep saying this today, and I don't mean it as an unkind set of words, but it's the truth. Exceptional business leaders know that compliance isn't optional, it's essential, because there is no safety or reliability without compliance. The next thing we want to talk about is security. Just as drivers who share the road must also share the responsibility for safety, we all now share the same global network, and we must regard computer security as a necessary social responsibility. Average leaders think they are too small to be attacked. Exceptional leaders know that small and medium-sized businesses are very likely to experience attack. In fact, 73% of businesses report they have experienced some sort of cyber attack or data breach in the last year, and this number has increased by 15% year over year for the last 3 years. So it's only going up. Phil, how many people have called us in the last 2 months having their emails breached?
At least probably 10 to 15.
Yeah. So we're seeing lots of stuff that is just, you're not too small, you're just too small to be on the news. 60% of small and medium-sized businesses go out of business within 6 months of a cyber attack. They can't afford it. They don't have the money to support being down that long. They don't have the capital in their business to keep themselves running when their computers cannot be accessed for 2 months or a week or however long it might take. You want security. You don't want malware and viruses. You don't want your website to disappear. You don't want to lose your reputation because you revealed sensitive customer data. You don't want your customers to be paying an invoice they think is from you, but is actually from a hacker that has gained access to your email system, learned what your invoices look like, and sent from your mailbox without you knowing an invoice with their ACH transaction information on it. We've had that happen 3 times in the last 2 months. And a big invoices, $150,000. We had a church that was getting their parking lot paved and their roof roofed. And they're not a client of ours, but they called us in a panic. And what do? Somebody got into our email system. They sent out they received the invoice from this company because they had gotten into the church's email system and realized that the church was about to pay $150,000 for this work that was done. They engineered an invoice that looked exactly like the one. They put an extra S on the domain name because who's paying attention when you get a bill? If it's from Comcast or Comcast with 2 T's, none of us, we're too busy. We don't pay attention to that kind of stuff. We're moving from thing to thing. And they paid that invoice to the wrong person, right? The only way, there is a simple solution. Just disconnect it and get everything off the internet. If security were all that mattered, computers would never be turned on, let alone hooked to a network with literally millions of potential intruders. 39 seconds. I was researching the frequency of cyber attacks, and I give you these numbers with a tongue-in-cheek sort of way because there's hundreds of numbers that we can draw from. I try to go from reputable sources that I trust, but it's probably somewhere around this number. 39 seconds. Every 39 seconds a cyber attack occurs. And even more disturbing is the fact I shared earlier that 0.1% of them get caught and they buy the tools for $80. They're making over $80,000 a week as a minor hacking things. But they don't have to pay the taxes and have the overhead and all the problems that us legitimate business owners have to do.
Teach us the way. $80, huh?
It is.
That put out hacking products, like one's called a Pineapple, which allows you to essentially clone a Wi-Fi router and make it appear as the same name, but in reality, you're on somebody's unforgiving network where they just collect all of your data. That's an $80 product. It's called a Wi-Fi Pineapple. You can go buy it, and you can even sign up for a subscription that says, hey, we'll provide you customer care on this for $70 extra.
Yeah, isn't that ridiculous?
Yeah.
I was telling you about the IT conference that we attended last month, and we watched AI generate malware, deliver it on the back end of a printer update file, which is an exe file, that printer manufacturer just decided to leave open-ended because, why not? And that allows the malware to get attached to it and then to infect your computer. So even your printer vendors and things like that, they can't keep up with what's going on, right? So it's scary. AI is helping hackers to look more authentic. Like I said, it's no longer easy to spot, and even my team of 15 people have to work with that other team of 3,000 that I showed you for us to stay up with what's going on and try to protect and keep on top of what's happening. Security in IT is like locking your car or securing your house. It doesn't stop the bad guys, but if it's good enough, they may move on to an easier target. So let me be very clear. I will never promise anybody that I can 100% stop you from being affected by cybercrime. I can't. But what I can do, and what anybody that's giving you an IT strategy should be able to do for you, is make sure that you are prepared to respond and that you can do it in the timeline that suits your business. And that's what they should be talking to you about. How quickly do you need to be back up and running? How long can you be down before your bottom line becomes affected by being down? That's what they should be promising you. No one can promise you that they can stop cybercrime. It's every day it's a game of cat and mouse of who's going to be ahead of the other one. Apparently, road construction signs are easy targets. Hackers take over these signs in cities throughout the country and share ridiculous messages with drivers who are stuck in traffic. For example, this one is in San Francisco. Commuters were recently warned that Godzilla is rampant. Here's one from, I don't know where this one's from, but zombies ahead, run. Or there's the good old rogue panda on rampage. This one I think is pretty funny too. Trapped in the sign factory, please help. You don't need to make it impossible for hackers to breach your systems. You just need to make it as inconvenient as possible, and as hard as it might seem, it isn't as hard as it might seem to make it harder for them. By putting up layers of security and walls, just like you would in your home, right? If somebody's stalking your home because they're going to come in and rob you, if you have a security system and a watchdog and you have the bright lights that come on, they're going to move on to another home. That is the same strategy that you want to use with your cybersecurity. Make it hard enough to where if they don't want to waste the time, they're going to go to somewhere else where it's easier. A few months ago, the owner of a small construction company up in Bonnie Lake called to elicit our help. He couldn't open his files, and something wasn't right. And after logging into the system and taking a look, we saw that it was clear that he had been attacked with a ransomware. And within an hour, we were able to get them back up and running because of their backup. But if not, that ransomware attack could have stopped him from operating his business until he either decided to A, pay the ransom, or B, move on without those files. This is the next thing on our IT strategy checklist. Do you have a ransomware-proof backup for all of your data and your systems that are important? $133,000 is the average cost of a ransomware attack, and that was in 2022. Due to the sophistication of these attacks, it is estimated in 2024 that the cost for a small business is about as high as $650,000. That's a staggering number to me. Companies avoid disaster because they take security seriously and invest in systems that reduce the probability that they will be attacked or that the attacks will be successful. This is important. Companies that avoid disaster invest in systems. It doesn't happen by accident. They don't rely on a single system. They have multiple systems. They have multiple layers. And if they can't prevent an attack, they can still prevent damage from the attack. And if damage does occur, they can recover from what was lost. This statistic for a small to medium-sized businesses are also alarming. 75% of them would survive only 3 to 7 days. And the other statistics seem a little weird to me, but 47% say they would only survive 3 days, 28% would be on the end of the 7 days. There's no silver bullet solution with cybersecurity. A layered defense is the only viable defense. A security system with several layers is difficult to hack. Even if your data is targeted, getting through the many tiers of security will be a hassle. Even if accessing your accounts takes a few extra steps, it's worth the hassle. I bank with Umpqua Bank here, Mark Swanson, and I know it's a pain in my butt when I have to do this two-factor authentication and I got to do this and I got to do that. But every day there's people being tricked by fraudsters that get into your bank account and steal your money. And many businesses believe the FDIC covers that money. No, they don't. No, they don't. They do in your personal account, but not in your business account. That insurance is needed to cover that money. Many people falsely believe that they're protected. We all know what multi-factor authentication is. It's that thing that says, are you really you? And by the way, if you didn't know and you used Microsoft, they have recently changed what they believe is best for multi-factor authentication, because email multi-factor authentication and text message multi-factor authentication is being taken by
Fishable.
It's fishable. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Fishable by hackers. So now Microsoft is forcing, and we are having to go around and get ahead of this with all of our clients, that people change the way that they authenticate to an authenticator app. And so in big business, or even in small businesses, at some point they will force that upon the business, and all of your email will be shut down for a day while you reset passwords and set this up. So we're going into businesses right now, getting ahead of this, changing all of that stuff so that when it's forced upon them by Microsoft, they're ready to do it. So turning off the multi-factor authentication isn't a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with it. It's easier to install that software, but the bad part came in when they forgot to turn it back on. Shortly after this, the CEO's email got hacked, and the hacker used a faked invoice to send it to the accounts payable using the CEO's email account. However, the hospital has an internal process that requires invoices to be sent with a copy to the CFO. So this was not successful. Here's your next IT strategies checklist. Have you implemented multi-factor authentication? Use it, people. Use it wherever you can. Wherever it asks you to identify yourself, do it. Banking. If someone gets your password, and they have your email address and they get your password, they go to Amazon.com, Delta.com, PayPal.com as quickly as they can, because most of us are using the same password for Amazon and email and Delta.com and wherever else, right? And they know that. So they immediately, quickly move that way. Do you have controls in place to force your employees to use strong passwords? Do you have dark web monitoring that notifies you if passwords are being sold or traded? So we have a tool that we also use where we monitor the dark web for a business domain name. So any email address associated with that domain name, if it shows up in matching with a password on the dark web, we get an alert and we're able to call that person. Tana, I think you guys have gotten a few of those from us, right? That say, hey, we want you to change your password, or check and see if this is still a relevant password. Sometimes old passwords are on there and those aren't relevant anymore. But if you get an alert that the dark web has something, change that password immediately and change it wherever you're using it, because they will use it. Have you configured your email system to prevent sending or receiving confidential or protected data? A lot of people believe email is a protected way to send confidential data. It is not. Now, if you're sending from Microsoft to Microsoft, it is inherently encrypted. If you are sending from Microsoft to Yahoo or Hotmail or Gmail, it is not encrypted. And somebody can intercept that information. And if it's your client's information that you're sending that way, that is a concern. Whenever we do a dark web, whenever we meet a new company, the first thing we do is go in and do a dark web scan. We want to see if there's anything on the dark web that, and usually we find more than 14.
Oh yeah, quite a bit more.
Usually we find more than 14. And usually people are shocked. They had no idea. And we don't get the full password, right? We get the little hash marked, but the first 4 or something is there. And I'll say, does this look familiar? And I can't tell you how many people I've sat across from the table from that have said, yes, that's my main password. I'm like, change it now. So that's where they sell them. An electrical parts company signed up for cybersecurity services after experiencing a scare while setting up with the new cybersecurity system. The IT provider discovered a firewall that needed to be patched. The internal IT employee kept saying, oh, I'll take care of that, but they never did. Fortunately, the IT provider Cybersecurity Services had included a SOC, which stands for a Security Operations Center, and it does constant monitoring of the company's system. And the SOC noticed an active cyber attack and shut down the power to the firewall, which stopped the attack, and then completed the necessary patch, installed the relevant updates, and verified that the attack hadn't harmed any of the company's assets. Next strategy checklist item: do you regularly patch and update your critical systems? Microsoft doesn't just put patches and updates out to ruin our life, although we feel like they do. And none of us click that blue button because we don't know if we're signing up for 40 minutes of a turning circle in the middle of our workday or 10 minutes, and don't ever interrupt that update if it's happening, because that can cause corruption on your system. So we patch and monitor people's systems, and we patch at night while they're not there, so that it doesn't interrupt your work, and we take that on. The reason they put out patches and updates is, one, to improve their software, yes, and yes, we wish they all would sit around a table and talk to each other before they did it, so that it didn't break my printer and it doesn't break but it does. They can't. They just don't have that capacity to do that. But if you are not patching your systems, and you're not keeping your Microsoft Office up to date, and you're not keeping your computer updates going, you're at risk, because they also include security updates in those if they know there's a vulnerability. How often do you review your patching and your updates? Daily, weekly, monthly? In the very near future, cybersecurity exercises are going to be absolutely expected of all companies by regulators. We see this coming. America should get ready. Cybersecurity regulations will soon be coming to the United States, and that's a good thing. I firmly believe that the U.S. will pass similar regulations like the GDPR is in Europe. Safety, reliability, security, insurance, and compliance. These are the 4 pillars that you need. Due to the labor shortage in America, coupled with the power of automation, automation is becoming more essential for both businesses and everyday life. Automation is powered by computers and technology. For example, think of the safety features on a car that are automated. Things like your wipers automatically go if it's where your brights. I got pulled over the other day because my brights were on. Your brights automatically come on when you're driving, right? All the things that are automated that are happening, and that's happening. I mean, pretty soon Tesla will be able to deliver itself to your doorstep, probably, right? But we see this happening everywhere. Automation is happening in restaurants. You've got automated email notifications, automated tracking, automated updates, automated delivery confirmations, and automated calendar notifications. Chatbots can handle routine customer inquiries and search databases to provide common responses to questions. And efficiency, reliability, and availability are all advantages of this automation for small businesses and for cybersecurity. It's actually a good thing for cybersecurity, because we can automate the email system to know that rules are being set up. We can automate the antivirus protection to shut something down when we need it to. Email security training and compliance are crucial, because 94% of all malware attacks are initiated in your email system. Your IT checklist: have you implemented web filtering technology to prevent your employees from going to infected websites? Have you replaced your antivirus software with advanced endpoint protection, where if this person's computer has been compromised, the rest of the computers can identify that and shut it down before it spreads throughout the network? That is the more advanced endpoint security that is needed today. But technology doesn't just replace people, it also assists them. This is important because when it comes to cybersecurity, people are your biggest asset and your biggest liability. This illustrates the importance of proper training and having the right tools in place. A $20 million marketing company in upstate New York worked with companies that required compliance but were unable to verify their own compliance internally. Additionally, a vulnerability scan showed them that they had major weaknesses in their cybersecurity, so they hired an IT company to help them increase both their security and their compliance. Part of their new security system was that SOC that I was talking about earlier. It isn't just the internal people, but these automated systems that are also needed to put those layers together. IT strategy checklist: have you performed a yearly risk assessment, and have you had a vulnerability scan performed on your network in the last 12 months? Do you know what's going on in your network? Do you know what your risks are? Have you documented what should be done if your systems are compromised? There are only two types of companies in the world, those that have been breached and know it, and those that have been breached and don't know it. I don't know how true that is, but probably pretty true. Research indicates that it takes companies an average of 197 days to detect a breach. Once discovered, it takes an average of 68 days to contain it. Prevention is not sufficient. You're going to have to invest in detection because you're going to want to know what system has been breached as fast and humanly as possible. Companies that can detect a breach in 30 days or less can reduce their potential losses by more than $1 million. Don't be average, be exceptional. One way to ensure both quick detection and response is the managed detection and response that we're talking about. I'm going to skip a couple here. Another IT strategy checklist. Have you met with someone knowledgeable in cybercrime in the last 3 months to specifically review what you are doing to protect your business? Do you have documentation to demonstrate compliance with all of the relevant regulatory bodies that are over your business? Because believe me, they're going to start asking. For years with HIPAA, everybody was like, yeah, they've never bothered me. Well, it's happening now. We're seeing it more and more. Kevin O'Leary, also known as Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank, explains that technology is becoming more and more important to small businesses. He argues that technology is the link between businesses and the customer, and this means making sure your technology is safe, reliable, secure, insured, and compliant. It's absolutely essential. Just like cars like Tesla and even refrigerators are becoming computers, your business is no longer separate from technology. Your business is technology. You can't survive without it. And yes, once again, that is me with the Shark Tank. I know I've repeated this statement over and over, but I feel it's important, and this is the last time I'm going to say it today. Exceptional business leaders know that compliance isn't optional, it's essential, because every company is now a technology company. Safety, reliability, security, insurance, compliance, those are the critical pieces. We started this presentation comparing layers to the ones you use in building. Some of you may be only building one house, but typically you have multiple houses going at once and your employees will be working on them. It's hard to track all the standards they're supposed to be following at each house. Did each employee follow OSHA regulations? Did they all wear a hard hat? Did they install the smoke detectors? Did they follow fire code? Many employees are using company cars. It's hard to track all the oil changes and tire rotations and state inspections and license plate renewals. It's hard to know if they wear their seatbelts or drive the speed limit or text and drive or drink and drive. It's hard to know if they have the car running while they run into the store to get a few things. And sometimes they drive their own car. Well, because they're working, that's better than using the company car. Sometimes they drive their motorcycle or their bicycle or their snowmobile to meetings with their clients. And sometimes they take a client out for a ride on their ATV because that particular client is cool and would never sue if anything went wrong. Sometimes they let their friend work on the company car because they really seem to know a lot about cars. And sometimes they let their mom drive the company car when her car breaks down. She needs it. And they even make an extra key for the company car just in case, they don't want to be in a jam. Don't worry if it's locked up at home. Well, at least they think it's locked up. Does your insurance policy cover all of that? Do your policies prohibit all of that? Are you enforcing these policies? Do you even know what your employees are doing? If this sounds ridiculous, it's not. Your employees are using their brother's laptop on a family vacation. They are letting their mom use the laptop to check some email and do some online shopping. They gave their login information to their friend, or they have it on a sticky note right there on the refrigerator. They are using their personal phone or their personal email or both instead of the company's email systems, and they don't have a password to lock their phone because it's too much of a hassle. And their Gmail password is password1 exclamation point. And their friend offered to help them speed up their slow work laptop because that seemed like a good offer. And they logged into the Wi-Fi at Starbucks for a sensitive client call, and they made the call on their cell phone on FaceTime instead of your approved platform. Does your insurance cover all of that? Do your company policies prohibit all of that? Are you enforcing these policies? Do you even know what your employees are doing? Because only average business leaders believe that compliance is optional and not essential, or they think they can handle it themselves. But exceptional leaders know that compliance isn't optional, it's essential, and they need an experienced partner to manage compliance process because only average business leaders believe that it's optional and not essential. They don't think they'll ever get audited, so it doesn't matter. But exception business leaders know that compliance isn't optional, it's essential. They know that audits are likely to happen and they may get hacked. So what type of leader are you? Who is your partner? You would never leave your car unlocked, doors open, windows down, engine running in a bad neighborhood at night. And your business is far more valuable than your car. Thank you, everyone.